This channel, and in this video we are going to be taking Cambridge IGCSE paper 1 October-November 2024 paper. That's the core paper. Okay, so let's get right in to the questions. Okay, first question says Jacob is 10 years 8 months old. Amy is 15 months younger than Jacob. Find how old Amy is. Right, so we could draw out something here, and then we have years, and then we have the months. So it says that Jacob is 10 years 8 months, while Amy is 15 months younger than Jacob. So we're asked to get the age of Amy. So that's simply subtracting 15 months from Jacob's age. So you can see that 8 negative 15 cannot go, right? It's going to give us a negative number, so we could borrow 1 year from the years place, right, and then move it over to the months. So you should take note of one thing here, and it's the fact that 1 year is equal to 12 months. So if we are borrowing over here, we're taking 1 year over to the months place. That means you're going to add 12 months, right, because 12 months make 1 year. So we're moving over 1 year. So 12 plus 8 is what? So as we've moved over 1 year, this becomes 9 years, right? And then it has moved 12 months, which is the 1 year, right? So 12 plus 8 is 20, and then 20 negative 15 is 5. That's 5 months, and then we have 9. So that means that Amy is 9 years 5 months. Second question says, let's move to the second question. It says change 6.7 kilometers to meters. So it's important to know that 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters. So if we have 6.7 kilometers, let's call that to be equal to x. So we then multiply through. That becomes 1 times x is equal to, then we multiply this, is equal to 6.7 times 1,000, right? So 6.7 times 1,000 is going to give us 6,700 meters, right? So 1 kilometer equals 1,000, then 6.7 kilometers equals x, and then multiply through. Okay, third question says measure angle x. Angle x is what? Then B says write down the mathematical name for this type of angle, right? Sorry. So all you simply need to do here is to get your protractor, right? Protractor, and then place it on this straight line, right? You can see the line here, and then place the protractor over this line, and then measure. And then when that's measured, you're expected to get about 83 degrees. So angle x is 83 degrees. And then question says, write down the mathematical name for this type of angle. Right? So if an angle is greater than 0 and less than 90 degrees, so you can see that 83 is greater than 0 and it's less than 90 degrees, then we call it an acute angle. If it's greater than 90 but less than 180, that's an obtuse angle, right? If it's less than 360, greater than 180, that's a reflex angle, right? So just place the protractor over this line and then measure the angle, and then you're expected to get 83, and that's acute. Fourth question says a concert starts at 1950 and finishes 2 hours 42 minutes later. Work out the time the concert finishes. So all we simply need to do, we write over here the hours and the minutes place, right? So it says the concert starts 1950, so 19 hours 50 minutes, which is equivalent to 1950 p.m. or we could say 7:50 p.m., right? Depending on the time standard, right? So 2 hours 42 minutes later. So we simply need to add 2 hours 42 minutes, right? So if we add the 2, 50 plus 42 is 92, and 19 plus 2 is 21. But this is not the correct answer, because why? Remember that 60 minutes equals 1 hour, right? And in the minutes place we have more than 60. So we could get some hours from here. So we could say that 92 minutes is equal to, watch carefully, is equal to 60 minutes plus 32 minutes, because we need 32 minutes to get that. So 60 minutes plus 32 minutes. So that implies that 92 minutes is an hour 32 minutes. So we place down 32 and then move over 1 hour from the 60 minutes, right? 1 hour 32 minutes. So 19 plus 1 is 20. 20 plus 2, 22. So that's the time it finished. 22:32 p.m. or we could say 10:32 p.m. using the 12-hour standard. That's simply subtracting 12 from the value, right? Okay, next question says use one of the symbols less, greater, or equal to make each statement true. So the first one we have is 2 over 7, then 0.2861. So the value of 2 over 7 is 0.2 over 7 is equivalent to 0.28571. Get your calculator, it's allowed in the exam, right? Then you can see that the value here is 0.2861, and 0.2861 is greater than 0.28571. So that implies that 2 over 7 is less than, because 2 over 7 is 0.285, right? So next question goes on to say, you don't need a calculator for this. You have 99 over 900, right? You can see that 9 is a factor. So if 9 goes here, we have 11. And if 9 goes here, we have 100. And 11 over 100 is same as 11%, right? Because 8, let's say 8% is always equal to 8 over 100. So it's equal to, right? And then this goes on to say, the third one says 1 to the third, that's 1 times 1 times 1. It's going to give us what? 1. And then 4 to the 0 is going to be 1. Remember the 0 power rule that says that a to the 0 is equal to 1, where a is not equal to 0. So for all numbers, right, except 0, when we raise it to 0, we have 1. So 1 to the third is equal to 4 to the 0. Okay, sixth question says, the stem and leaf diagram shows the number of cars sold each day by a company, right? And then it's important to take note of the key given in the question, right? You could see that 32 represents 32 cars, right? 32 cars. So the first question goes on to say, find the range. So in order to get the range, it's simply the difference between the largest and the smallest value in the data set. So you can see that this is a stem and leaf diagram, and then we're arranging values in ascending order. We're starting, this is the stem, right? This is the stem, and this is the leaf part. So 1, 0 represents 10 cars. As we move 1, 3, that's going to be 13 cars, 14, 15, 16, 17. Over here is now 21, so you can see it keeps increasing. So the lowest value in this data set is 10. So under the smallest, we're going to have 10. So what's the largest? So you can see that as we keep moving, we're going to have larger numbers, right? So here we have 30, we have 30, 46, 51, 52, 54. And that's the largest, right? The end. So 5, 4, look at the key, is going to be equal to 54 cars. So 54 negative 10 is 44. And that's the range of this data set. Okay, B goes to say find the mode. So the mode is simply the most frequently occurring member of the data set. And if you look at this stem and leaf diagram, right, you can easily infer that. So all you simply need to do, look at the leaf part. You can check for repetitions. You can see that 777 was repeated, right? You can see that 22 was repeated. You can see that 00 was repeated. But we're looking at the most frequently occurring member. You can see that 7 was repeated thrice, and it corresponds to stem 2. So what does 7 represent? It represents 27. So that means we have 27, 27, 27. Over here we have 30, 30, 32, 32. Right? So the most frequently occurring is 27 because it occurs twice. So by looking at the leaf part, you can see the part that repeats the numbers the most. Right? That implies that the mode is 27. Right? Seventh question says, find the reciprocal of 1 whole 1 over 4. Okay. So 1 whole 1 over 4, we could simply convert it to an improper fraction by doing what? 4 times 1. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. And that's going to be 5 over 4. This is just to make the work easier, right? Let's do another one. So let's say we have 4 whole 2 over 3. How are you going to do it? 3 times 4 is 12, right? 12 plus 2 is what? 14. That's going to be 14 over 3. I just want to be sure you get how to convert it. So the reciprocal of a number is simply 1 divided by that number. And it's important to note that when you're carrying out division, it's going to be 1 times 1 over the number, because we're then going to switch things, right? And I'm going to switch it up. So what we're then going to have 1 divided by 5 over 4. So that's going to become 1 times, then we're going to switch things, right? Then becomes times 4 over 5, right? Because there's a change in sign. So 1 times 4 over 5, that's 4 over 5. We convert 4 over 5 to decimal, 0.8. That's still accepted. Right? Sorry. Excuse me. A question says, the diagram shows a quadrilateral. Find the value of y, right? So all you simply need to understand here is that for a given quadrilateral, the sum of angles must equal 360 degrees. 360 degrees. Remember the formula that says that the sum of interior angles of a convex polygon is equal to n negative 2 times 180, right? So if n is 4, the quadrilateral has 4 sides, so 4 negative 2 times 180, and that's 360, right? So this is 49. This is an interior angle. This is 28. This is y, but we don't know this angle, right? That leads us to the fact you should remember that angles at a point sum to 360 degrees. So to get the value of this angle here, let's call it C. It's simply going to be 360 negative 138. And 360 negative 138, that's going to be 360 negative 138, and that's going to be 222. So that means the angle here is 222. So what does this say? The sum of the angles, that's the interior angles, is going to be equal 360 degrees. So that implies that 49 plus 28 plus 222 plus y is going to be equal to 360 degrees. So 49 plus 28 is going to give us 77, right? 77 plus 222 is going to give us 299, right? That's going to be 299 plus y equals 360. And then to get a value of y, we subtract 299 from both sides, and that's going to be y equals 360 negative 299. And 360 negative 299 is going to be equal to 61 degrees. And that implies that the value of y is 61 degrees. Okay, ninth question says, Edith invests $3,000 in a savings account. The account pays simple interest at a rate of 2.6% per year. Calculate the total interest during the 3 years. So all we simply need to do here is remember the formula that says that interest, that's a simple interest, is equal to the principal, which is equivalent to the money invested multiplied by the rate times the time over 100. So what's the principal? What did Edith invest? $3,000. So that's 3,000 multiplied by the rate 2.6 multiplied by the time 3 years, right? Divided by 100. So this could simply cancel out. This cancels this. This cancels this. We're going to have 30 times 2.6 times 3. So 30 times 2.6 times 3 is going to give us 234. That's $234. So that's the total interest earned during the 3 years. Okay, next question says, these are the first 4 terms of a sequence. We have 10, we have 16, we have 22, we have 28. Write down the next term in the sequence. So you have to study, you have to look closely at the sequence given to you, and if you look closely, you see that there's a constant difference of 6 between the terms. 6, 6. 10 plus 6 is 16. 16 plus 6 is 22. 22 plus 6 is 20. And there's a feature of the arithmetic sequence, right? So to get the next term, this is simply going to be 28 plus 6. The same cycle continues. So 28 plus 6 is going to be the next term, and that's equal to 34. So that's the next term in the sequence. So the B part of the question goes on to say, the term-to-term rule for another sequence is multiply by 3 and subtract 1. The fourth term in the sequence is 68. Find the third term in the sequence, right? So you need to understand what is meant by term-to-term rule. The term-to-term rule is what gives you an idea, what gives you what term, if you're looking for the 50th term, what's that rule that governs the sequence, right? So that implies that a term-to-term rule, Tn, is equal to 3. That says multiply by 3, that's 3 multiplied by the term before, and then subtract 1. Now don't be confused, right? Do not be confused. Let's say that the first term of the sequence is 9. So the term-to-term rule implies that the next term of the sequence will be determined by what? Multiply 9 by 3. 9 times 3 is 27, and then subtract 1, and that's 26. So the next term would also be determined by doing what? Multiplying this second term by 26, and then subtracting 1. That's the same thing that applies here. So it's going to be the nth term will be equal to 3 times the term before, which is Tn negative 1, and then you subtract 1 to get that term. Do you get that? So Tn, let's say T4 will be equal to 3T4 negative 1, negative 1. And it's given to us that T4 is what? 68. Equal to 3, then T4 negative 1 is 3. So 3T3 negative 1. And you can see the question then comes to say, find the third term in the sequence. So we then make T3 the subject of the formula. So we add 1 to both sides. 1 plus 68 is 69. So we have 69 equals to 3T3, and then dividing through by 3, we have that 69 divided by 3 is going to be 23, and that's the third term in the sequence. Question 11 says, circumference of a wheel is 198 plus 0.55 cm. Calculate the diameter of the wheel. Give your answers in millimeters. Right, so all you simply need to do here, first of all, remember the formula. This is radius. This is the radius, right? This is the center. And what is this? This is 2 times the radius, 2r. And this 2 times the radius is equal to diameter, right? And so it's important to note that the circumference of the circle, the distance from the circle, the perimeter of the circle, right, is equal to pi d, right? Pi d. And remember, I said that d is equal to 2r. So we have the right to say that it's still going to be equal to pi times 2r, which is equal to 2 pi r. But in this case, we're asked to calculate the diameter of the wheel. So we simply say pi d is equal to 198.55. Right, so to get a value of d, we divide through by pi. So pi d is equal to, that's the circumference, is equal to 198.55. Then to get d, we divide through by pi. So 198.55 divided by pi is equal to 63.2 cm. But look at what the question says. Give your answer in millimeters. So that implies that you must be very conversant with the unit system, the conversion system. And that's from the implication that we have that 100 cm is equal to, listen carefully, 100 cm is equal to 1 meters. And remember that 1 meters is equal to 1,000 millimeters. Let me write out that 100 cm is equal to 1 cm, which is equal, 100 cm is equal to 1 meter, which is equal to 1,000 millimeter. So since we're given 100 cm equals 1,000 meters, so this is a trick. So 100 cm equals 1,000 millimeters, right? So 63.2 cm will be equal to what? So we then multiply through. Do you get that? So that means that 100 multiplied by what we don't know will be equal to 63.2 times 1,000. So to get what we don't know, we divide through by 100. So this cancels this. So 63.2 times 10 is going to be 632 millimeters. And that is the diameter of the wheel in millimeters. Okay, 12th question says the grid shows half of a shape which has a line of symmetry L. Complete the shape, right? So first of all, you should understand the meaning of the term line of symmetry. It simply gives you a half of the shape, that it divides the shape to two identical halves. So it's gonna be like a reflection of the other part. So we have this, watch carefully, this is this, and then if we're then reflecting over here, we have this. If we're then reflecting, we're gonna have this. Pay close attention. If we're reflecting this to this side, we're gonna have this. We're reflecting this to this side, we're gonna have this. So this is literally the reflection. Do you get that? We can then move over to the other part. Same thing. This is this, right? So this is a reflection to this. 1 unit. This is a reflection to this. This is a reflection to this. That's all. So we have this. And then it's super easy for us to then join this to this. So you can see that it's a perfect reflection of what's over here. And that's to what's here. Do you get that? So that's the answer to the question. Simple reflection, trace the points together accordingly. Same unit on the left, same on the right. Then reflect. That's it. 13 says, find a value of 6c plus 7d when c equals 3 and d equals -4. So all we simply need to do is to substitute. So that's, we have 6c plus 7d. So since c is 3 and d is -4, that's going to be 6 into 3 plus 7 into -4. So 6 times 3 is 18. And 7 -4 times -4 is -28. And 18 -28, you could simply do what? 28 -18. 28 -18 is 10. And then we then attach a negative sign. So that's going to be -10. Anyways. Okay, we have 6x plus 8 equals 11x plus 4. So our goal here is to get the value of x. So we could simply subtract from any of the sides. Our main goal is to get x. So we could subtract 4 from both sides. So if we subtract 4, right, -4 plus 8 is 4, right? So that's 6x plus 4 is equal to 11x. 4 -4 is 0. And then remember, the main goal is to get the value of x, right? So we can then subtract 6x. So we have 6x plus 4 is equal to 11x. So we then have that 6x plus 4 -6x is equal to 11x -6x. So that means that 4 is equal to 11x, -6x is 5x. Remember, the goal is to get the value of x, so we divide through by 5, and that implies that x is 4 over 5. Now that's the answer. Okay, next question says, write 34 as a percentage of 80. Write 34. Now I want you to understand this very well. Write 34 as a percentage. Let's call that percentage x. So x percent, which is x over 100, as a percentage of 80, right? So to get the value of x, which is the percent, we cross multiply, right? I just want you to understand, this is not what you saw during the exam, right? Just to understand the concept. So if you multiply through by 100, it's going to be 34 times 100, and then to get the value of x, watch carefully here, we have 100 times 34 is equal to 80 times x. So if we divide through by 80, that's it. So divided by 80 is equal to x. And that collabos to 34 over 80 times 100. So if you're asked to write a number as a percentage of another, all you simply need to do, that number divided by this, and then times 100. So it's simply 34 over 80 times 100. So this could cancel this. So we have left what 34 times 10, and that's 340. And 340 divided by 8 is going to give us 42.5. So, right? So that's 42.5, which in this case is the x, right? 42.5%. So 34 has been written as a percentage, 45% of 80, which is 34. So 34 is 42.5% of 80. You get that? Nice. 15 says, a bus stops 25 times in a journey. Table shows the number of people who get on the bus at each stop. Calculate the mean, right? So in order to do this, I will give you the visual, right? First of all, understand the mean is simply the sum of all numbers in the data set divided by the number of numbers. The number of numbers, right? But we have to do something here. So that leads to the formula that says that the mean is equal to the summation of fx divided by the summation of f. And f is the frequency, right? F is the frequency, x is the data, right? So let me explain this in clear terms. So it says that number of people who get on the bus at each stop. So the bus stopped 25 times. So 0 happened once, right? That means nobody entered the bus at the first stop, happened once. Then for one person entering the bus, that occurred 6 times. So that's 1, 1, 1, 1. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then that continues. That means 2 people entering the bus. That happened on several locations. So that's 2, 2, 2. So in order to minimize that stress, all we simply need to do is the summation of the frequency times the variable. That's the frequency times this, 1 times 0, plus 6 times 1, because 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 1 times 6. So there's no need for that stress. I just want you to understand. So the mean is going to be 0 times 1 plus, right? 0 times 1. That's the frequency times the number of people, which you can say 1 times 0, plus 6 times 1, plus 7 times 2, plus 3 times 4, or 4 times 3, anyway, then plus 5 times 4, plus 2 times 5, right? The frequency number of people. This times this, this times this, this times this, this times this, right? Still same as this times this times this. Doesn't matter. Okay, so if we sum this up, divided by the number of outcomes, right? And we have 25 times in the journey. So that's the number of elements in the data set. So that's 25. Because if we add up the frequency, that's why the formula says the summation of fx, that's the frequency times the data, divided by the summation of f. If we add all those values together, it's going to sum up to 25. Right? So 0 times 1 is 0, plus 6 times 1, 6, plus 7 times 2, 14, plus 3 times 4, that's 12, plus 5 times 4, 20, and 2 times 5, that's 10, right? So 6 plus 14 is 20, right? 6 plus 14 is 20. So we have 20 plus 12 plus 20 plus 10 over 25. So 20 plus 20 is 40. 40 plus 10 is 50. 50 plus 12 is 62, right? 20 plus 12, 32. 52. 62, then divided by 25. So 62 divided by 25 is going to be 2.48. And that is the mean, right? 0, 6, 14, 12, 20, 10. Then divided by the total number of elements in the data set. Okay, question 16 says, the diagram shows a trapezium with parallel sides of length 12 cm and W cm. The height of the trapezium is 8 cm. The area of the trapezium is 78 cm squared. Find the value of W, right? So it's important to note that the area of the trapezium is equal to what? half of the altitude, which is the upper, that's the one on the upper parallel side, and then plus the base, larger parallel side, and then multiply by the height. Right, so let's relate it to that formula. We're given that the area is 78. So we have that the area is equal to 1 over 2 into a plus b times the height. So area is 78, so we substitute. So 78 is equal to half into, what's the altitude given in the question? It's what? W, which we're looking for. So that's going to be W plus the base, which is given as 12, right? And then multiplied by the height, which is given to us in the question as 8. So times 8. So you can see that the main goal is to get a value of W. So you can see that A can divide 2 to give us 4. So 2 into itself 1, A divides 2, that's 4. So we can see that 78 is equal to W plus 12 times 4. So we could divide 3 by 4. Remember, the main goal is W. So 78 divided by 4 is equal to 19.5 over here. So 19.5, we divided 3 by 4 is equal to W plus 12. So to get a value of W, we subtract 12 both sides. So 19.5 negative 12 is equal to W plus 12 negative 12. So this goes, and then 19.5 negative 12 is 7.5. And that is the value of W, 7.5. Okay, question 17 says, distance D meters measures 34.6 meters. Correct to the nearest 0.1 cm. Complete the statement about the value of D, right? So this is easy. This is just like the reverse process of estimation and rounding off. So that means that the distance was measured, and then what was it? 34.6 meters, but it was corrected to the nearest, it was a correction to the nearest 0.1 meter that led to this value. So in order to get the reverse, all we simply need to do is 0.1 divided by 2. And 0.1 divided by 2 is 0.05. Because remember that in approximation, if the number before is less than 5, you're not going to approximate. But if it's up to 5 or greater than 5, we're going to round that up. So that's where the division by 2 is the middle ground comes in. So 0.1 divided by 2 is 0.05. So all we simply need to get, this is linked to what we call the lower bound, is 34.6 negative 0.05. And 34.6 negative 0.05 is 34.55. 34.55. I'll explain well soon. So we subtracted 34.6, that's 0.05 from 34.6, right? And then we then add 34.6 to 0.05. Remember, we subtracted at this point, and this corresponds to the lower bound, right? This corresponds to the upper bound. So 34.6, right, plus 0.05 is going to be 34.65. And notice here that you could not see a less than or equal to sign, right? Now let me explain. If 34.55 is less than or equal to D, that implies that D is greater than or equal to 34.55. So for this to be 34.55, if we round this up to the nearest 0.1 cm, that's the nearest decimal place, first decimal place, since the number before 5 is up to 5, we could round this up to 34.6. So even though we have 34.56, it's still going to round it up to 6. This 5 to 6, because 6 is greater than 5, it's up to 5, it's more than 5, right? But you can see that there is no less than or equal to sign here, because if we have 34.65, what's before 6? What comes after 6? That's 5. And 5 is up to 5, and you get that. So we could approximate this to 34.7, but what was measured? 34.6. So that's why it has to be less than right? Excuse me. It has to be less than 34.6. So if we then start off with 34.64, you can see that that is going to round it down because 4 is not up to 5. Right? So it's going to round it down to this same 34.6. You get that? That's it. Question 18 says, the diagram shows a rectangle and 2 points P and C on a 1 cm squared grid. Write down the coordinates of point C. So you can see where C is. Remember the XY coordinate system. If we have a number here, A, and a B, it implies that this is the X coordinate and this is the Y coordinate. Following the order, right? So here is the origin. We can see that at the point where X is equal to 0, the value of Y is 5. So that's 0, 5. So that is the coordinate of point C. Question B goes on to say, the rectangle is enlarged by scale factor 2 with center of enlargement point C. Find the coordinates of the image of point P. Right? So it's enlarged by scale factor 2. And then the center of enlargement is C. Right? So when you're given center of enlargement, all you simply need to do is trace that point, right? Trace that point to the vertices, right? These are the vertices where the lines are meeting. This is a vertex, this is a vertex, this is a vertex, this is a vertex. Now the next step is to match this center of enlargement to the vertex. Match this to the vertex. You can see that this is another vertex, so they're actually connected, right? This is connected to this, and then you can see this vertex over here, and then what we're gonna have is this down to this point, right? The question says scale factor 2. Scale factor 2, so that means we're multiplying 2, right? It's increasing by 2. So what we simply do is to scale this up by the same. You can see 1, 2, 3 blocks. Same thing here. So if we kind of like draw some blocks here, right? We kind of like draw some blocks here, 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 right? So you can see that's by the same unit, by the same 1, 2, 3 units, right? And then you can see that from C to P, we have 1, 2, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we repeat that because we're enlarging it by twice the size, right? So all of this continues down to this point, right? So that's the image of this. This is P, right? So this is this, and then this is going to be equal to that. And then you can see this vertex over here. So from C to this point is 7. Look at down here, 7. So if we're scaling it by a factor of 2, we repeat the same process, right? By the same 7 units. So that means, let's say it ended here, right? This is just like a sketch. So if from here to here is 7, right? You can see that. That means we need another 7 to scale it by a factor of 2, because 7 times 2 is 14, right? So here is going to be 14. And then you can see that the blocks continue, and then we could trace this down. So what does the question say? It says, find the coordinates of the image of point P. So as we have carried out this enlargement, P, this is the image of P. Let's call it PIM. Right? So it's then going to be formed after here, because from here to here 7, and then from P to P image is also 7. Right? Now how do we get the coordinates? We've already said that here is 14. So we've already seen that the x coordinates, that's from this point to this point, is 14, and then that's 14, And then this is going to be what? What's the y coordinate? If we trace this down, what do we have? This is going to be 10. This is going to be 11, right? Right, this is very clear because you can see 1, 2, 3 units, and then we're going to have 1, 2, 3 units. That's the scale factor 2. 3 times 2, 6, right? So this is 8, this is 9, this is 10, 11. So 14, 11. That's the coordinate of the image of P. Then it says find the area of the large triangle. So you can see that when we marched from C to the vertex here, it landed at this point. So we could draw the large rectangle in this manner. We're then gonna have this, right? This is the enlarged rectangle over here. So what's the area of a rectangle? The distance between here and here, because you can see 1, 2, 3, and then it's scaled up by a factor of 2. So that becomes, we now needed another 3, right? So that's 4, 5, 6. So here is 6, right? And then where we have 1, 2, 3, that's 3 units. And then from 7 to 14, we have another 7 units. So 3 units plus 7 units is 10 units. Then 10 times 6, which is the length times the breadth, is going to be 10 times 6, which is 60. So that implies that the area of the enlarged rectangle is 60 cm squared. Okay, question 19 says, Joe asks some people if they own a car, excuse me, and if they own a motorbike, right? So 86 people own a car, 39 people own a motorbike, and 7 people do not own a car and do not own a motorbike. Complete the Venn diagram, right? So you can see that over here, this C represents the cars, right? And M represents the motorbikes. So you can see 74 over here, but it says 84 people own a car. So to get what is here, because question says complete the Venn diagram, we're going to simply do 86 negative 74, and that's going to be 12, right? And why is that? So why is it even 74 in the place? Why is it possible that we have 74 over here? So this region where I just put in 12 is the intersection of C and M, and that implies that there were some people that were asked the question and it was found that they own both a motorcycle and they also own a car. That's possible, right? You could own a car, you could also own a motorcycle. So this 74 over here represents those that just have a car only, right? But the 12, which is the intersection of C and M, represents those that own both a car. So if they should ask raise up your hand, right? If you own a car, raise up your hand. You're gonna raise up your hand, right? And then when you're asked the same set of people, if you own a motorbike, those set of people will raise their hand for cars, would still raise their hand for the motorcycle because they own both, right? So that's why it's included here. And then at the end of the day, the total of C is going to be what? 86. And then it says 39 people own a motorbike. So how are we going to get here? It's simply going to be 39 negative 12. And 39 negative 12 is what? 27, right? Because this has to sum up to M. 39 own a motorbike. We have 12 that own both a car and a motorbike. So we need 27, right? That means 27 people own a motorbike only, then the remaining 12 own both a car and a motorbike. And that's why you see the inclusion. So that's the completion. And then last part says 7 people do not own. So when you have a situation that we have some set of people that don't have the two, they don't belong to the set at all. They don't have car, they don't have a car, they don't have a motorbike, right? So you're gonna place that outside here, 7. You're gonna place the 7 there. So that's the completion of the Venn diagram. B goes on to say, find the total number of people that Joe asks. So to get that, it's simply the summation of every single part of this Venn diagram. So it's simply going to be equals to 7 plus 7 and 4 plus 12 plus 27. 7 plus 7 and 4 is 81. 81 plus 12 is 93. And 93 plus 27 is 120. Right? So you just add every single part of the Venn diagram. That gives you the entire universal set, right? And that's 120 people. Then C says write down n of C intercept m. I explained this earlier, right? That is C intercept m. Those that are both in C and m. And we got that as 12. We subtracted, sorry, 74 from 86. And that gave us 12, right? So it's simply 12. Those that own both a car and a motorbike at the same time, right? 20 says Josh buys a car for $7,800 and sells it for $5,265. Calculate his percentage loss, right? So in order to calculate percentage loss, it's simply the loss divided by the cost price, and the cost price implies how much it was bought. Take note of that, and then times 100%. And what's the loss? The loss is simply the cost price. The cost price minus the 7%. Right, let's look at that. So he buys it for $7,800 and then he sells it for $5,265. So his loss is the cost price which he bought minus how much he sold it. So 7,800 negative 5,265. So 7,800 negative 5,265 is 2,535. So 2,535 is the loss. Then divided by the cost price, which is how much it was bought, which is $7,800. So 7,800 then times 100%, right? So this cancels this cancels this. Then 2,535 divided by 78 is 32.5, right? 32.5% loss because he bought the car 7,800 and then he's selling it at a lower price, right? That's it. Question 21 says factorize 28x negative 35. So looking at what we have here, this is 28 and this is 35. You can see that these are multiples of 7, right? So we can factor out 7, and 28x divided by 7 is going to give us 4. 28 divided by 7 is 4. And that is 4x. And then negative 35 divided by 7 is 5. So 7 into 4x, negative 5. And then you must ensure that they're no longer common factors. That's when you look at the brackets in, right? What's in the brackets. You can see that the only common thing between 4 and 5 is that they have a factor of 1, and that's not going to change anything, right? Okay, B part says make R the subject of the formula C equals R over 4 negative P. So the main goal is to get a value of R. So we simply add P to both sides so that, remember, the goal is to get R, so this goes. So P plus T is equal to R over 4. So to get a value of R, we multiply 3 by 4, right? So R is equal to 4 times P plus T, right? So that means that R is 4 into P plus T, right? Because we then had to multiply 3 by 4. Multiply 3 by 4. Together? Okay. Question 22 says, solve the simultaneous equation. You must show all your working, right? So let's call this equation 1 and let's call this equation 2. Right, so to solve something like this, you just have to study carefully. You have to look at what is given to you precisely. So you can see here that we have 6y, you have 2y. And there's a relationship between 6 and 2. And it's the fact that 2 times 3 is equal to 6. So we could multiply equation 2 by 3. right? So if you multiply equation 2 by 3, so that we could get some 6 to cancel out, that's going to be, if you multiply 3x by 3, it's going to be what? 9x. Then negative 2 times 3 is negative 6y. Negative 17 times 3 is negative 51. Right? So let's then call this equation 3. Right? Please take note, it's the same thing. Right? It's just like if we have if we have x plus 4 equal to 9. Well, let me use something more realistic. If we have something like 12 is equal to 7 plus 5. If we multiply both sides by 2, 2 times 12 is 24. 2 times 7 plus 5 is 12, and that's still 20. You can see it's the same equation, right? So we could then simply add equation 1 and equation 3. So that 6y negative 6y cancels to be 0. So 5x plus 9x is 14x. 6y negative 6y is 0. So that has eliminated that. Then 9 negative 51 is negative 42. Right? And then dividing through by 14, x will be equal to negative 42 over 14, which is negative 3. Right? So that's the value of x. Then we're asked also for the value of y. So you could simply substitute in any of the equations. For example, 3x negative 2y equal to negative 17. So we've gotten the value of x as negative 3. So it's going to be 3 into negative 3. Negative 2y is equal to negative 17. 3 negative 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. Then negative 2y is equal to negative 17. So then we then add 9 to both sides, right? So negative 9 negative 2y plus y plus 9 is equal to negative 17 plus 9. So this goes that negative 2y is equal to negative 17 plus 9 is negative 8. And then dividing through by negative 2, negative divide negative is a positive, then 8 divided 2, that's 4. So that implies that x is negative 3 and y is 4, right? Okay, question 23 says, without using a calculator, work out 5 whole 1 over 3, negative 3 whole 4 over 7. You must show all your working and give your answer as a mixed number in its simplest form. So the easiest way to go about this is to simplify the whole part. So this is the whole. We have 5 whole 1 over 3. We have 3 whole 1 over 4. So 5 negative 3 is equal to 2. So we can simply have 2 whole 1 over 3 negative 4 over 7. This is 4 over 7, right? So 1 over 3 negative 4 over 7. If we should get the LCM, we can simply get the product of the two. That gives you the LCM. 3 times 7, right? Or if we should solve for that, we have 3, we have 7. We have 3 here, 1, 7, 7, 1. That's 21. 3 times 7, 21. So 21 divided by 3 is 7, right? Then negative 21 divided by 7 is 3. Then times 4. 21 divided by 3, 7 times 1, that's 7. 21 divided by 7, 3 times 4, 12. So 7 negative 12 is negative 5 over, that's negative 5 over 21. So we have 2 whole negative 5 over 21. But this is not a perfect answer because it's not possible that we subtracted 5 wholes and a fraction. We have 3 wholes from a fraction, and then we're subtracting them, and then it's giving us a negative answer, right? So we have to borrow a whole. We're going to take 1 over. So that's now going to be 1 whole of negative 5 over 21 plus 1. That means we carried 1 from the 2 over to this. So we have negative 5 over 21 plus 1. 1 is same as 21 over 21. So we could say 1 whole negative 5 over 21 plus 21 over 21, which is 1, right? So negative 5 plus 21, that makes the job easier, is 16. So negative 5 plus 21 is same as 21 negative 5, and that's 1 whole 16 over 21. And that's the answer. Okay, the last question says, the diagram shows part of a regular polygon. The interior angle of the polygon is 132 larger than the exterior angle. Calculate the number of sides of this polygon. So to simply get this, you should recognize the fact that the sum of angles in a straight line sum to what? 180 degrees. So here is x plus 132. Here is x. So we can say that x plus 132 is plus x. Sorry, x plus 132 plus x is equal to 180. So x plus x is 2x plus 132 equals 180. Then 2x would be equal to 180 negative 132, and that is 48. Then if we divide through by 2, 48 divided by 2 is 24, right? 24. Okay, then the question says calculate the number of sides of this polygon. So then, recognizing that the sum of exterior angles of a polygon is equal to 360 degrees, right? And to get the value of each exterior angle, it's equal to the exterior angle is equal to 360 divided by n, because the sum of exterior angles must sum to 360. So we have 24 degrees as the exterior angle. That's each. So 360 over n is equal to 24. Right? So if we multiply 3 by n, we have that 360 is equal to 24n. And then 24n equals 360. And then if we divide 3 by 24, we have 15. So that means n is 15, which is the number of sides of the polygon. So that's 15. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you learned big time from this. Right? Do well to like this video, subscribe to this channel so that you can get more solutions to questions like this, more difficult problems, and all of that. Right? Thanks once again, and have a nice day.